Hey everybody, welcome to Lecture 8 recap. We're going to be looking at the muscles of the trunk and shoulders. So the way that this presentation is arranged is it's going to be pretty casual. I'm just going to be identifying the muscles found in various poses. So no note taking here, just looking. Just a small little library of information to have when we're doing the assignment. If you guys have any questions or like, what am I looking at here, or how do I make this assessment? I sort of wanted to provide these videos in case you guys need a little reminder of what to look for. I'm also going to be explaining the decisions I made to come to an accurate analysis. So looking at landmarks, looking at origins and insertions, that kind of thing. But in general, pretty casual talking style. And I might occasionally look here just in case things go awry. So this is my 3D model anatomy app. It's called Human Anatomy Atlas. I might use it every once in a while, but I just wanted to include it here. It's my secondary monitor. And there's my face cam right there. So the main muscles of the trunk are going to be the pectoralis muscles, which is the chest muscles over here, the rectus abdominis muscles over here. So even though the external obliques, like over there, it covers a lot, we're mainly going to be seeing the rectus abdominis and the pectoralis major for the anterior muscles. The lateral muscles are going to be the serratus anterior, so this muscle over here, and the external obliques, which are going to be, oh, that's the internal obliques. The external obliques would be here. So those are the lateral muscles. And then the posterior muscles, we would have the trapezius, the sets of rotator cuff muscles, the latissimus dorsi, and the erector spinae, which is not shown because it's a really deep muscle found underneath here as well. All of these muscles found underneath the latissimus dorsi. So the anterior muscles, the first set of muscles we're going to look at is the chest muscle, the pectoralis major muscle. So the way that this is arranged is I've chosen 3 references that I think demonstrate different variations of how the muscle presents itself on the surface. And then above here is how I would have done the analysis if I was doing the assignment, which I will be doing the assignment actually. So we see here that the chest muscle is a really broad muscle, and we see that its origin and insertion points are going to be along the sternum and clavicles. So if we sort of make that tracing, if we have a good start of the ribcage, we can make that tracing really easy. Something to remember is that the pectoralis major inserts on the arm. So in this example here, we see that because of that insertion point, the pectoralis major follows along. I've had questions for this example as to what if there's breast tissue on top of the pectoralis major? How do we come to an accurate conclusion or an accurate analysis? And my answer to that would be if we know the ribcage, we know where the sternum is. And because we know where the sternum is, if we look at this example, the pectoralis major sort of originates alongside the sternum. And so that's how I'm able to make that calculation as to where that pectoralis major may be. So we need to have a really good understanding or a fair understanding of where that ribcage sits in space so that we can draw the pectoralis major on top of it accurately. The next set of muscles, anterior muscles, is the rectus abdominis. So like I mentioned before, if we have really good understanding of where the ribcage and pelvis sit, by finding those ASIP points, finding that sternum, we can make the connection of the rectus abdominis into the figure really accurate and sort of seamless, right? Because we know that the rectus abdominis originates from the lower portion of the ribcage down to the sort of this V-shaped pelvis where that inguinal ligament is, we can sort of find where that rectus abdominis sits. The reason that I brought up these 2 images is because I want to show very slight differences in male and female rectus abdominis. Okay, this is not 100% true, but it's just a very general guideline. And that the rectus abdominis for female figures is going to be very violin shaped, while for male figures, we're going to be seeing it in a jagged, sharp way. In this example here, I want to show that even the rectus abdominis, like we think of six packs as like super, buff and everything like that, but even in a pose like this where it's like you can get, quote unquote rolls, we still see that rectus abdominis shape being present, right? So the way that the packs come out, go in, and then that large sort of flaring out at the bottom. We can see it there. And so that's how I'm able to make an assessment. Most of the time, like I mentioned, people like to do anterior poses. So this is pretty rare, but I did want to introduce how impactful the stair stepping of the rectus abdominis is in profile view. The next set of muscles I want to talk about are the serratus muscle and the external obliques, right? So if we find that the serratus muscles are going to originate from just the lower portion of the scapula, and this example shows it really clearly where those serratus muscles are coming from, and they're going to fan out and they're going to connect with the external obliques. So the external obliques are going to also interdigitate with the serratus muscles, and they're going to travel all the way down to the lateral side of the body. Because we know that axis point in that iliac crest is over here, just above that, that's where we're going to even find the external obliques. So that's how I made the conclusion to place the external obliques in this way. So it sort of sits in the border between the two, between the iliac crest and the rectus abdominis muscles. There are examples, like in this example here, you can see that the serratus muscles aren't, like, you don't know if it's rib cage or you don't know if it's serratus anterior. It's usually, serratus anterior muscles are pretty hard to see. Like in this example, right? It's pretty hard to see, but just remember that they're going to be a little bit more horizontal than the rib cage. So in this one, I would probably account these as rib cage ribs, like individual ribs, rather than serratus anterior. But I still included it because for completion's sake and for the muscle analysis sake. Like in this example here, the latissimus dorsi, which we'll get into soon, pretty much completely covers up the serratus anterior. But we do see it a little bit here as well. So maybe in my example, I would have pushed a little bit lower. Now the thing about the serratus anterior is that if we take off the pectoralis major, right, not all of the digits interdigitate. And so that's how I came to that decision to not interdigitate, not to put the external obliques all the way up there. Because in this example here, this diagram doesn't show that relationship. So in this example here, they're not showing the relationship. And I would probably put another digit of the serratus up here. So that's how I came to that conclusion. So when we look at the back, the first muscle is going to be the trapezius. Now the thing about the trapezius in this example is that the trapezius is going to be seen on the front as well, because it inserts on the lateral portion of the shoulder. So the acromion process and the clavicle, the thing I mentioned a lot of times, this is why it's important. It's because the trapezius inserts along this region. When we look at it from the back, we're going to be able to see 3 distinct portions. And 3 distinct portions means 3 distinct sets of muscle striations. We're going to see the top, middle, and bottom portions. Notice how here the trapezius inserts on the scapula. Therefore, where the scapula goes, the trapezius follows. So this trapezius is broad because this arm is coming out. But now that this arm is being pulled back, that trapezius is going to bundle up. That's why I provided this example. In this example, you can see that this is called the ligamentum nuchae. The ligamentum nuchae is sort of where, it's sort of this white portion right here. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. It's sort of where this white portion here, that's where the trapezius originates from. Because the trapezius originates from here, no muscle grows there. Therefore, we're going to see the 7 cervical vertebrae, and we're going to see a dimple on there as well. It's something to remember for the assignment, and it's something that's really important when we're looking at the surface level anatomy. The next set of posterior muscles are going to be the rotator cuffs and the latissimus dorsi. So it's going to be this group of muscles right here, as well as this one right here. So the rotator cuffs and the latissimus dorsi, the reason that I bundled them together is because they sort of interact really similarly. The latissimus dorsi is this really large muscle here, and the rotator cuffs are going to be this group of muscles. Now, the most important thing to note is that the teres major, this pink one, and this latissimus dorsi, their origins are really similar, right? If we look at this back view, they're really similar. Whereas the supraspinatus and the teres major are going to lay on top of the deltoid, or underneath the deltoid. And they're going to lay on top of the head of the humerus. So these are going to be the same, and then these two are going to be the same. Really interestingly, we see in this photo, this is the teres major right here, and this is the latissimus dorsi. They're traveling to the same region of insertion point. If we look at these images from the anterior view, we can sort of see that relationship being taking place in the anterior view. So even when we're drawing anterior views, this posterior muscle will be visible. Similar to the trapezius, we're going to be able to see a flat portion. This is going to be called the thoracolumbar aponeurosis, and it's going to play a really important part in surface anatomy, like in terms of what we're looking at. So it's going to be flat here for where the latissimus dorsi originates, and because it's flat there, we're going to be able to see the erector spinae muscle group. So the erector spinae muscle group, if I turn off this latissimus dorsi, and we turn off these serratus posterior muscles, right? We're looking at the serratus anterior, but these are the serratus posterior. So we turn these off, we're going to be able to see these groups of muscles. Together, these muscles are going to be called the erector spinae group. So they're really deep muscles, but I just really wanted to bring it up because they show itself volumetrically on the visual surface, right? So this group of muscles is going to contribute to the forms that we're seeing here, right? So really clearly, we can see that it tracks alongside the vertebral column, but it goes down to the in between the pieces points, and that's exactly what we're looking at in this diagram right here. So for your assignments, I wouldn't recommend you guys drawing these muscle groups, but I just wanted to provide some extra information for you guys when it comes to the trunk and shoulder muscles. So that concludes this portion, or this week's recap. It's a really quick recap just for help with the assignment. Not talking too much about mobility, not talking too much about origins and insertions, but just looking at the kind of muscles that we're going to be seeing in real life and for your assignments as well. So it's just a good reference point to get back on, and also as a review for the guest lecture, because the guest lecture is going to be much more in depth into what we're going to be talking about for these things. So I hope that helped, and I'll see you guys for the next recap discussion post.